Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 20th. Um, and I have one story here. It's a bit of a wider story. We've kind of touched on it before. The importance of Canada in this whole Arctic move north. Um, and what you're seeing in the news is this big feud between Canada, the U.S., and the Swedes trying to jump in and add their own procurement of airplanes, production of airplanes, really, into Canada. And I think this is really interesting because what the actual story is how's Canada going to protect the North, right? And we're gonna go through that throughout the episode. But what the news is actually showing you, they're just showing you these tidbits, um, extremely zoomed in and narrow views of they're just making them seem like news stories, right? But you have like four news stories that are actually tied to the same topic, right? And they don't portray it that way for whatever reason. Quite honestly, I just think they just don't. I don't think they want you to know the truth of what's actually going on, what they're actually doing, and so you really have to be tying in several news stories at once to kind of get a bit of a wider picture of the kind of the strategy that's actually going on in the background. What's going on here specifically with the planes is quite simply, I think that this is a stab at Trump to curry new favors from the U.S. Right, pull down tariff relief. The other day, I saw actually that the U.S. is kind of rolling back aluminum and steel tariffs from Canada, which is probably going to be big help to cities like Hamilton where steel is a big production thing. Um, but outside of that, if this is the way I see it, is if we're threatening purchase of 88 F-35 fighter planes worth billions of dollars. It's like a $28 billion purchase with a production line of Swedish planes. It might actually create maybe more production in Canada to support the production of the existing F-35 components that are manufactured throughout Canada. So let's get into it. Um, the article here starts off in the Globe and Mail. What I have here, though, is you'll see is I have a couple articles, Globe and Mail, something from the CBC, and related articles to really get that wider view. So we have here Sweden Saab offers to build entire Global Eye military surveillance plane in Canada. So this isn't just the Gripen fighter plane. So now they're adding a Global Eye military surveillance plane, right? Just to kind of sweeten the deal, why not, right? And this is when you get Jolie. Where is she? That's not the one. This is when you get Jolie here saying Saab is offering 10,000 jobs, and the F-35 isn't really doing that. But it's a combined effort. Those 10,000 jobs would come from the Gripen plus the Global Eye in manufacturing, right? And when we go down here, Swedish defense company Saab is intensifying its campaign to secure Canadian aircraft sales by offering to build the entire Global Eye military surveillance plane in Canada if the Department of National Defense orders it. So that's pretty nice. In an interview at the Saab factory in Linköping in southern Sweden, David Moden, senior sales director of the Global Eye, said that building the entire aircraft in Canada would create 3,000 jobs. We are offering a made-in-Canada solution by building and installing the plane sensors there. And so this is a really important part here is the Global Eye is based on Bombardier's 6000 series long-range business jet, which is assembled at Toronto's Pearson Airport. The plane, minus its interior fittings, is flown in Linköping, where it is completely stripped down and rebuilt into an airborne early warning control control plane with an array of highly sophisticated radar sensors. So basically, what the Global Eye is it's a bombardier plane that they bring over to Sweden, they strip it down, and then they refit it with a bunch of these gadgets, and they make a plane. So they're basically using Canadian planes to make their own military planes. So what their fix is we'll just do the whole thing in Canada instead of sending it to Sweden, refitting it. We'll just do it from Canada. Which, I mean, to be honest, doesn't sound like that bad of an offer. The plane also looks pretty cool. I mean, this looks like a pretty awesome plane, to be honest. Looks pretty badass. I feel like you'd have some, like, James Bond jumping out of this thing. So this is key here. This is a surveillance plane. So now they're adding surveillance into this whole equation. Down here, it kind of compares it to another plane that they have, the Poseidon. But basically, this thing does surveillance. It does aircraft surveillance, so it has a range of 650 kilometers. It does ground surveillance, so it can see tanks at a great distance, and it can detect submarines if the when they submerge, when they peak above water at any. It's about up to 1 meter. 1 or 2 meters just below sea level, they can actually detect where a submarine is, which is pretty cool. Pretty good to have in your military stockpile. So this is one part of the story, is now they're trying to sweeten with this deal. But the problem is Canada has been a part of an F35 program since 1997, and so that's what I brought up here so everybody can see. Is we've been a part of the F35 Joint Strike Fighter program, and I'll put this in the link in the description box if you guys want to read this in greater detail. But you know, we're one of the biggest members in this. We're building a lot of component parts for the F-35. The F-35 is the U.S.'s best plane, and so it's subsequently NATO's best plane as well. There's a lot of political significance in being trusted with building the U.S.'s best fifth-generation fighter plane, to be honest. And so this is why I think it's political, because of all of the back and forth, the tensions around the tariffs and all of that's been happening between Canada and the US. I believe, obviously this is my opinion, everything I ever say is my opinion, but I believe that this is really just a political game. How much does Canada actually want to move into a Gripen striker force? Because the thing is, you have to rebuild your entire air force from that point on to be exclusively basically servicing that one plane, and that's going to be in perpetuity because you have the factory, right? You have the factory, you have to make it. So your aircraft have to be that from that point on. You can't start mixing and matching it. It's that because of supply chains, because of all of the other things. You gotta be able to serve those planes well. You gotta have spare parts for them. Whole slew of things go on in the military industrial complex that people don't really think about when they're procuring military hardware. And this article is interesting. I'll also add this one to the into the description box as well for you guys. But this is one of the largest factories for the F-35. So basically in Winnipeg, they're making these side wings. Megaland is making the Chicopee here. So there's around 1,500 jobs currently in Canada, manufacturing jobs within the military industrial complex, making specific parts for the F-35 plane. So we're already there. We've gained the trust of Lockheed Martin, who's manufacturing these beauties. Why all of a sudden are we going to put a stall in a review on the planes? So basically, 16 are supposed to be coming in soon, and then the other 72 are like basically on hold right now. And so they put 72 planes on hold, 72 F-35s Um, that's tens of billions of dollars worth of aircraft hardware, fifth generation aircraft hardware that's on hold. The U.S., I can guarantee you, is not happy about it at all. And this is exactly why I think it's political, because I think that, they're like, hey, these Swedes want us to be manufacturing their planes in Canada. We want more manufacturing capabilities within the F-35 program in Canada. To be honest, I don't think that would be a bad thing to have at all. I think that would be amazing, to be honest, because these planes are going to be the backbone of NATO probably for the next 50 years, right? And if you are one of the key manufacturers for these planes, by the time like a seventh gen fighter jet comes out, these things might be obsolete, but they're still going to be flying. They're going to be remodeled. They're going to be refitted. They're going to do this and that. All of that stuff can be done in Canada, right? So, I think this is what's going on. I think they're pushing this to be like, hey, we're not gonna pay you these like $20 billion that we promised we would do, but it would be great if we could renegotiate the deal and this and that. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think we're going to be sitting at some kind of attempted renegotiation of this deal. I don't think that they're going to go with the Gripen for a number of reasons. For one, it would be political suicide if they actually cut out a massive like $20 billion deal with the US. I think the US would completely it would not be good. It would not be good. They would make us hurt on purpose. It's not a small amount of money. It's a big order. That's one thing. The second thing is we're already kind of in a contract with them. So if you're reneging on something that was signed, something that was promised, it's bad for business and it's a bad international look, right? And Canada doesn't really have that clout to tell the US to go fuck itself, right? So this is also key. This is why I don't think it's going to happen. What we have here, I actually found this really cool article here, and what it goes into, it gives the actual impact of the F-35 program in Canada. And I found this, they have this really cool table here. Scroll this up a little bit here. So it says the type, amount, impact on GDP. So what's the type? Current production between 2007 and 2019. So it was about $2 billion. Impact on GDP was about $2 billion. It sustained 1,400 jobs. From 2026 to 2058, they're planning on it being 1,600. It's going to impact the economy about $5 billion. That's with current projections, right? So this might be changing over time depending on what the global state of affairs is and all of that. And obviously, if we manage to increase our manufacturing capabilities with the F-35, which I honestly, this is the route that I think they're going to be going in. I mean, this is just the CBC article, really. Jolie here, industry minister. She's been on this. She's been in the news a lot about this, just because obviously she's the industry minister. But like I said, the political impact of them reneging, there it is, a $27 billion Lockheed Martin contract is ridiculous. I mean, so they go into how Saab is going to create 10,000 jobs. The F-35 jets are very expensive. They're very expensive because they're the best in the world. They're just hands down the best in the world. That's why they're expensive. You pay a premium when you buy the best. That's just, I don't know how else to put it. Would you buy a 3 Series Beamer or a 7 Series Beamer? They're both Beamers, right? But the 7 Series is a lot better. That's basically all it is. So we have a bunch of these old CF-18 jets that need to be changed. So this is where it is. The first tranche of 16 fighters will be delivered between 2026 and 2030. Okay, so they're coming in, and then the other 72 are on hold. They're kind of being re-looked at, right? And so exactly. So last winter, following the eruption of the trade war, the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump, Prime Minister Carney, ordered a review of the F-35 purchase and analysis on the ongoing, despite promises to have it completed in September. And so this is exactly it, right? So it's a political thing. They're like, you guys are going to put these sanctions on us, and we're going to stop this deal. Canada's trying to make the U.S. hurt wherever it can. I get it. You kind of have to like play your cards and try and get as much as you can wherever you can. How it's going to go for them, I'm not quite sure. And so now I'm going to move on to the next story to kind of give you guys that wider picture of the whole story. So this is all about the manufacturing, who's going to do what. You know, these first couple of parts of the plane story. What's the industrial impact on the whole thing? But really, just to kind of tie into that industrial impact, like I mentioned, there's a lot of sunk costs with writing off the F-35 program, and obviously legal disputes because we've signed contracts with the U.S. government, with Lockheed Martin. There's a credibility issue with the U.S. plus NATO. We're in the biggest airplane program right now in a NATO in the West. That's that F-35 program, right? The other thing is building these factories for the Gripen, right? They're going to take time. It's going to take a couple of years before they're built, and it's going to take a couple of years before you have an actual fleet built out of planes, right? So if we put off acquiring these F-35s for building factories for Gripen planes, tarnishing our reputation, and keeping our existing fleet outdated, severely outdated, that is also a problem. The other thing is, we're already kind of in an integrated system with the U.S. With the NORAD integration, with various NATO interoperabilities. Sweden's a neutral country, or they were up until recently, and so it is it's a very tight line that Canada's trying to play right now with this whole situation. But let me get into this right now, because this is the story, right? So we have these planes, we have this plane situation going on, but now we're also seeing that there's a looming military radar project that creates deep anxiety for rural Ontario. Why is there a military radar project for rural Ontario? Why? Let me show you why. Because they want to make a radar to cover the north. They're looking at the Arctic. They're looking at how they can protect our northern seas. This is key, right? And they're going to use these radars to do it. I mean, this whole story is about how the Canadian government's trying to buy out people's properties in northern Ontario to set up these radar towers, and the township's trying to fight it and this and that. You can't fight it when the Department of National Defense tells you, "Hey guys, we need your land because we need to protect the north." That's kind of game over. Your land is going to be appropriated. Sorry. And so this is exactly, and so they touch on it here, right? So the two sites have been identified in southern Ontario, one in Clearview and another in the Kawartha Lakes region, to house two massive transmit and receive stations with rows of antennas surrounded by a 6-meter high barbed wire fence. The Arctic over-the-horizon radar is part of a $38 billion investment to upgrade Canada's contribution to NORAD. Exactly. We're a part of NORAD. We're upgrading our NORAD. Why? Because the Russians and the Chinese are pushing for a northern route into Europe, trading route. The Russians already have massive bases in their northern borders on the Arctic. They have a massive icebreaker fleet. And quite frankly, they just patrol the Northern Sea quite well. Canada does not. Canada doesn't really do anything. And this is exactly where it comes in. We need better radar. We need better surveillance. We need better air defense systems. And this is where these F-35s, why would Canada be buying fighter jets, 5th generation fighter jets? Who are we attacking? Exactly. We don't really attack anybody. But we need 88 5th generation fighter jets. Why? Because it's to surveil the North. It's to help. It's to be on par with the US when flying over the North and protecting the northern waters, because we're going to do it together with the US, right? That's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to protect it with the US. We're going to protect our shipping corridors with these planes. That's how that works. This is why we need them. This is why the military is of the utmost importance to every nation. I feel sorry for these people because it says that they've been living here for 45 years, but this is more important. You know what I mean? This is a dangerous game that's going on in the world. The dynamic is shifting drastically, and this has to happen. That's basically all it comes down to. They're taking 4,000 acres. They're taking 4,000 acres of production, so like farming production. And so they're saying it's going to have a ripple effect on society, on the local communities, definitely. On the wider scope of things, I'm not quite sure. I feel bad for the people, but the military is the military. You can't mess with the military. And so this is the follow-up thing. Also in the news, Canada, US, Finland outline plan to build new icebreakers. So what do we have, guys? We have Canada, the US, and Finland that are going to be building new icebreakers. Why? Because we're going to be creating these new trade routes through the North Sea into Europe, and we have to do it. We don't have any icebreakers. The Russians do, and they're going to be pushing that. They're going to be breaking the ice. They're going to be allowing Chinese shipping lanes into Europe. Their goal is to flood Europe with Chinese goods and underprice anything that the U.S. sends to Europe. Now, the U.S. is being reactionary instead of being a visionary, but you couldn't really do that with the Democrats because Kamala Harris is not an intelligent human being, and neither was Joe Biden. So now everything is reactionary, and now they're trying to speed it up. They're trying to do it. I'm not going to get into the article too much, but this is really the point. There's a wider game at play. The military hardware that's happening is key to protecting the North. We need better radar systems also to protect the North, to support those planes in seeing what's going on better. And we need icebreakers as well so that we can project our influence into Europe better. Also send our Navy up there through the North as well, like an aircraft carrier or something along those lines. These are these things. And this whole story with Alberta, why Canada's rushing to get these LNG pipelines going from Alberta to BC, getting the crude oil pipeline going through BC as well. It's because we have to boost our economy. We have to become a stable economy again with a high standard of living, and we need to start actually projecting some influence with the U.S. in our northern borders, because it is of strategic importance. It is of national significance that we do this. That's all I have for today, guys. Hope you liked it. Please like, share, and subscribe. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. Stay curious, stay informed, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada. Maple syrup and La Cabotay. Kick your ass all hockey season. Mounties be riding horses.